In the flickering glow of midnight flames, where the world of mortals ends and the veil between gods and men grows thin, whispers begin to rise. Not the voice of the wind, not the call of the divine, but chants, incantations, and forbidden words, passed down through generations like a sacred curse etched into the fabric of the cosmos. In Greek mythology, where gods did not fight only with thunderbolts and blades, but with words, spells, and ancient rites, magic was a secret weapon, a dark art cloaked in power. It wasn't just Circe, the enchantress who bewitched Odysseus, nor just Medea, the woman who loved and betrayed Jason. Spells wove their way through myths like mist, veiling even the brightest legends in shadows of the arcane. So, what gives a spell its power? Who first breathed life into these enchantments? And in a world where even the gods burned with jealousy and ambition, were spells the tools of evil or the last refuge of the powerless? Join me now as we unravel the mysteries behind ancient spells, curses, and magic in Greek mythology, and discover that not all battles are fought on the battlefield. Some begin with whispers in the dark. The legendary witches and magic of ancient Greece. In the dazzling universe of Greek mythology, where mighty gods reigned, heroes performed impossible feats, and monsters roamed, there existed a group of figures who defied all conventional definitions. They didn't wield thunderbolts, command the heavens, or roar on the battlefield. And yet, they made even the gods wary. They stirred fear in the coldest of hearts. They were witches, masters of ancient magic, wielders of words like weapons, and survivors who turned pain into power. Circe, the enchantress of Ai. When one speaks of Greek witches, Circe is never far behind. Daughter of Helios, the sun god, and the sea nymph Perse, she lived on the remote island of Ai, a place only the lost could find, and few ever left unchanged. Circe was not just known for her strange, mesmerizing beauty, both alluring and distant, but for her infamous gift, turning men into swine. When Odysseus and his crew arrived on her island, they were enchanted by her hospitality, her feasts, and her fine wine. But it was all part of her spell. Circe used transformation magic, a blend of herbs and ancient incantations, to turn eager men into grunting pigs. This wasn't mere mischief. It was protection. In a world where men, mortal or divine, often became conquerors, Circe's spells were her armor. And yet, she wasn't heartless. When Odysseus, aided by Hermes, resisted her spell, she was struck by his wit and will. She fell in love. They lived together for a year, and she gave up her magic of transformation. For Circe, magic was not a weapon of conquest. It was a shield for a wounded, solitary heart. Medea, the sorceress of love and vengeance. If Circe symbolized enchantment and control, then her niece Medea embodied raw emotion, love, betrayal, and wrath. Medea fell in love with Jason, leader of the Argonauts. She betrayed her family for him, murdered her own brother, and helped him steal the golden fleece. But once Jason tasted glory, he cast her aside to marry the princess of Corinth. And so, her magic turned from a gift of love to a blade of revenge. She used blood curses and poisoned gifts, killing the bride and her father, the king. And in her final act of fury, she slew her own children, declaring, "I will leave nothing for the traitor." Medea's magic wasn't madness. It was the language of a heart broken beyond repair. In a world that offered her no justice, spells became the only power she had left. Hecate, goddess of magic and crossroads. Beyond Circe and Medea stood an older, more primal figure, Hecate, goddess of night, crossroads, and the purest form of magic. Hecate did not join divine wars. She took no sides in love's chaos. She was the silent observer, the guide for those who walked the unseen paths between life and death. She ruled over spells, ghosts, and the sacred herbs that could heal or destroy. Worshippers offered her black dogs and honey cakes at moonless crossroads, whispering prayers into the night. And if you ever hear a dog bark at midnight, though no one's around, perhaps she is passing by. Curses, spells, and dark magic, when words become weapons. In Greek mythology, where every word could shape destiny, and every oath carried the weight of eternity, spells were more than mere magic. They were the language of power, belief, and desperation. No sword or spear was needed. Just a clay tablet, a few carved words, and a pinch of ash could shake the universe. Love spells, when desire is forced by magic. Love spells, known as philtro or magique epode, were among the oldest, most common, and most dangerous. In both myth and real life, many ancient Greeks sought witches to win back the heart of a lover. But forced love always came with a price. A typical love spell required. The true name of the target for the name was the soul's essence. A personal item, hair, nail, or fabric. Blood, tears, or poison wine as a conduit. And a fire, where the incantation was chanted 3 times. Give me their heart, as Troilos burned for Briseis. Circe taught such spells. Medea used them to enchant Jason. And in the hundreds of cursed tablets unearthed from Greco-Egyptian graves, we find endless pleas for love, often ending with threats. If she does not love me, let her burn with longing, as if her hands were on fire. Binding spells, katadesmos, curses that cannot be undone. If love spells bound the heart, katadesmos bound the soul. These curses were etched onto lead or ceramic tablets and buried deep in graveyards, wells, or beneath altars, places where restless spirits could carry the message to the underworld. They often began with lines like, I bind. Hades, carry my words to the dead. Hermes Thonius, guide this curse to its mark. Targets ranged from romantic rivals, courtroom enemies, betrayers, or even someone who dared steal a glance from the one you loved. These spells didn't just invoke suffering, they demanded action from gods of the underworld. Necromantic rites, Nike daimonia, speaking with the dead. After contact with Egyptian traditions, necromancy grew more common, especially in the secret rites of Eleusis, where one hoped to speak with the dead or uncover forbidden knowledge. A ritual often required blood, usually from a goat or black hen. A salt circle. The name of the deceased. In silence, more powerful than any chant. Odysseus did this, summoning the shade of Tiresias to learn his fate. Orpheus came close, playing his lyre on the threshold of death to call back Eurydice. But such magic came with danger, for once the door between worlds is opened, it may not close again. The power of writing, magic through language. To the ancient Greeks, writing was magic. Each letter, each syllable carried a soul. To write someone's name on clay, bone, or shell was to summon their spirit. Witches never wrote Zeus in full on a curse for fear of divine retribution. Instead, they used symbols, 3 interlocked circles, or jagged lines like lightning. Magical writing was more than a spell, it was a voice for the voiceless. Women, slaves, and outcasts could carve a cursed tablet and bury it in the earth, for beneath the soil, no one cared who was king and who was not. Is magic real? The evidence left behind in history. For centuries, archaeologists, historians, and linguists have traced the fading footsteps of magic in ancient Greek life. And what they found was not just myth, but physical proof. The unearthed cursed tablets. Across Egypt, Greece, and most famously at the Kerameikos Cemetery in Athens, hundreds of lead cursed tablets, depictions, have been discovered. Buried deep in graves, wells, and beneath temple floors, they whisper of a world where magic was more than belief. Many read like this: I curse Theodorus. O gods of the underworld, confuse his tongue before the court. Weaken his legs, make his hands tremble, so he cannot triumph over me. These tablets often invoke Hermes Thonius, Hades, Persephone, or even Eris, the goddess of strife, as intermediaries who carried out the spell. And never were these curses offered to the heavens. They were driven into the earth, because only in darkness could a curse take root. Magic in everyday life. Magic wasn't just the domain of legendary witches. It lived in the corners of everyday Greek life. Merchants wore talismans for fortune. Athletes hid charms in their sandals before Olympic Games. Mothers prayed to Hecate to shield their children from the evil eye. The heartbroken sought witches to win back lost love. Ancient spellbooks, known as the PGM or Papyri Graeci Magici, still survive. They describe in vivid detail how to craft amulets, summon spirits, or even conjure a protective entity using cat skin, a virgin's hair, and a silver pan under a full moon. Between legend and reality. To the ancient Greeks, magic wasn't inherently evil. It was simply part of existence, like sunlight or death. Anyone could learn it, use it, but they had to face the consequences. Even great philosophers like Pythagoras and Plato spoke of the power of words as a kind of spell. The right phrase, at the right moment, could bend fate itself. And often, evil didn't lie in the spell, but in the one who cast it. For magic, in its essence, was only a tool. The whispers that remain. Today, When we read ancient curses carved into stone or love spells bleeding from lead tablets, we don't just hear the voices of the past. We hear the echoes of souls who once despaired, once loved, once hungered for control. Because no matter how distant the myths may seem, the human heart, forever yearning to master fate, has never truly changed. When magic reflects the human soul, in the world of Greek mythology, where gods dwelled atop Olympus, magic was not something to fear. It was part of life, a forgotten language of the soul. It was how mortals sought justice when laws failed, how love turned into desperation, and desperation became action. And that is why these ancient spells, charms, and sacred rites still captivate us today. Not because they were truly miraculous, but because they held what the heart could not say aloud. Because deep down, everyone has something they long to speak, but no one to hear it. And sometimes, they whisper it to the gods. Let me know if you want this as a closing.